Well, welcome again to First Baptist Church Denby during our second annual Senior Week. We're so glad to invite our audience from YouTube and Facebook who joined us tonight. And thank you for your participation all week long. I've been noticing the numbers on our site, and they look good. So it tells us that we're doing a good job in bringing you good presenters and you're getting good information. So I thank you for that. And so tonight we're going to continue with two more representatives tonight, and they will be talking about brain health and end-of-life options. And two fine speakers, and I'm so proud to have them in our sanctuary tonight and be with us. So all week we've been talking about different things for seniors. Monday night we started with COVID updates and presentation also on caregiving. And we did the Tuesday night was spiritual development and depression and anxiety, which we all enjoyed. Last night was financial wellness and Social Security. And I just want to say one thing about Social Security for those who didn't get the literature. If you come Sunday, we have a mountain of information on Social Security, retirement plans, and health care, and all the other stuff you would need. So bring a bucket with you because we have plenty of information to give you regarding Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. So tonight we deal with brain health and end-of-life options. And after a prayer, I will introduce to you our representative, and then we will get started. Amen. So let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you again for another opportunity to come before you, to be able servants, to be able to pass on what you have given us, the knowledge you've given us, to be able to impart into somebody else. We pray and hope that what we do here tonight, what we say here tonight, information that we share, will be helpful and useful and productive and important in somebody's life. We give you all the praise and the honor. Amen. All right, so our first presenter tonight is going to be Linda Christie, and she is going to discuss end-of-life options. And Linda is has been in the business of health care for over, what did you tell me, 35 or 40 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. And she's married and has has spirituality in her life. She attends churches, and she has major experience under her belt dealing with in hospitals and in other regions and other places. She's currently at Lake Taylor, and I guess most of you can look that up. At Lake Taylor, she's been there for 3.5 years so far. So we want her to come. She has a bachelor's degree of science and nursing, and so we're asking her to come now as she comes to give us end-of-life options. So Linda, if you come up and take the mic. Let's give her a hand as she come, y'all. A few of us that are here. Amen. Thank you. The mic is right there. If you just hit the button one time, you'll be fine. And then when you finish, just hit it one time.
How's this?
And you're going to have to hold it the whole time, all right? So,
that's fine.
All right.
Okay. So I want to thank everybody so much for allowing me this opportunity to talk with you about a subject that is very difficult for people to bring up, let alone try to look into, to explore. Options for end of life. And I will say this before we even get started. I'm not going to be able to answer all of your questions, but I am going to give you something that should be very valuable, and that's sort of inside information. I appreciate the lovely introduction that I had. I do want to reiterate, though, that I started nursing school in the late 60s, and I'll let everybody do the math on that. And then so I quit, got married, and then I went back in the early 80s. During that period of time, there was quite a few things that came up that were not available prior to that time. And so we're going to go into some of those issues. The next slide, please.
Yeah, for us, online audience,
Yeah.
you probably have to put the mic a little closer.
Okay.
So they can't pick it up if it's
Okay.
too far away.
No, is this live or is this practice? Is this live or practice?
Yes.
Oh, never mind. Okay, so there I am, Linda Christie, nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, a registered nurse. Palliative care medicine, and we'll go into that a little bit more, and presently I am gainfully employed for 2 days a week at Lake Taylor Transitional Care Facility. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. The Macon Brock Jr. Foundation is what supports the palliative medicine team at Lake Taylor, and they are actually, I don't know whether anybody's familiar with the Dollar Tree, but that's what their foundation is from. And they help with fellowships for us. In other words, we've had 2 doctors so far that have gone on to be palliative medicine specialists, and there's one that's working with us now, and of course we're anticipating another one coming up. Next slide, please. And I can't see that. So this is the objectives and goals, and I'm just going to pull out my things right here. Sorry, I can't see that there very well. So the objectives and goals are to define options for prolonging life, delaying death when nearing the end of life due to advanced stage serious medical conditions. That's the first. The next would be to address medical advancements occurring in medicine which created new options designed to prolong life and enhance quality of life. Next is address unintended consequences of interventions at end of life. Sorry. And the next is address the effective team of treatment decisions made for patient quality of life while in the dying process, and the potential dynamics of the family for now and for generations to come. Next is define the role of advanced directives in the appropriate selection of a surrogate decision maker. Next is describe the role of palliative medicine and the role of hospice. I have quite a few definitions that I will not go into, but they are available for you whenever you can access this PowerPoint. So, what I'm going to do first is we are going to go into how to start the conversation. And so if you don't mind, please moving the slide. Okay, good. Starting the conversation. And I'm going to put the setting as a dinner. And the dinner was planned for a very significant purpose because Mary, who is 92 years old, has been having to go back and forth to her physician to have evaluations for urinary tract infections and dehydration and constipation, and she's actually been on the verge of going to the hospital. This last time, the granddaughter took her to the doctor's office, and he suggested that she do an advanced directive. So, excuse me. And so the plan was to have the family meeting, dinner, and then bring up the subject with the grandmother. Now, they've been trying to bring this subject up with her for a while, and it hasn't worked very well. So they have dinner, a lovely dinner, and Mary always likes to go on the porch after dinner, so she's sitting out there on the porch, and the granddaughter is in the kitchen finishing up the desserts, getting them ready to bring outside if need be, or inside, whichever. But Mary always prefers to be on the porch for a while after dinner. So they are on the porch, and the grandson asked Mary, what did you think about what the physician said about the advanced directive? Do you think that might be something you want to do? And this is a question that he had repeated a couple of times prior to that. And she said, I think it's a good thing. Silence. And then she said, for people that don't have families. So then he says, well, what other types of things did he talk about? And she goes, well, nothing really important. And she says, well, I have family. And she says, oh, look, there's that inchworm. That inchworm goes across the porch every day about that time, and here he comes now. You see him? And everybody's looking at the inchworm. And then finally, the poor grandson says, well, I'm going to go inside and see how the desserts are going. And she goes, okay, you go ahead and do that. So he goes into the kitchen, and the granddaughter's there, and she says, all right, what's going on with the conversation? Did you get her to talk about who she's going to have her surrogate decision? Did you get her to talk about the advance directive? And he said, well, sort of. We did try to start the conversation, but I'm starting to feel like I'm pressuring her, and I'm starting to feel like she really doesn't want to do this, that she doesn't think that it's important. And I know what the doctor said. I understand very well what the physician said. But the problem is that I don't feel right doing this. I feel like I'm not respecting her by pushing her to try to make this decision. So the granddaughter says, all right, well, what was she talking about after that? And he said, well, the inchworm? And she says, anything else? And he says, yes, actually he was. She was talking about her funeral. And she said that she's going to need a different dress because the one she has is probably way too big for her. And she also said that it's probably going to be okay for Uncle Joe to come to her funeral. And she's making out a list of songs that she wants to be played. And so the sister looks at the brother and says, should I bring the desserts outside so everybody can watch the inchworm? Or is everybody going to come inside? And he goes, well, I think you might want to come outside, bring the desserts outside so we can all watch the inchworm. So that is a very, quite an exaggeration, but it's actually very true. There's quite a few people that when you start talking about the advance directives and you start talking about making a surrogate decision maker, they are very uncomfortable with it. And she has some reasons to be uncomfortable with it or not see it as necessary. Because of that generation, if she was in her 90s, and that generation goes on evaluating death and the circumstances around death by what she saw in her grandparents and what her grandparents saw in their grandparents and what their parents saw going back. Now, everybody knows this, that the death, if you're born, then ultimately the death will occur. In the previous generations, though, death was, I don't want to necessarily say accepted, but it was part of life. Everybody knew that that was going to happen eventually, and the whole focus at that time was to take care of the person, to make sure that they were being fed and clean and dry and entertained a little bit. So the grandmother knew that the family was going to take care of her. So a person is completely dependent when you're first born, and everybody has everything done for them, feeding them, taking care of them completely. The other times that you are very dependent is when you're ill. And then towards the end of life, you become very dependent too. But in her mind's eye, based on her family history and how she had been taught, that you don't really have to talk about it. We know it's going to happen, but talking about it just makes it worse. However, she's more than happy to talk about the funeral and the arrangements for that. The other thing that comes into play is it is respectful of your elders to acknowledge what they feel is something that's comfortable for them and something that's not. And one of the biggest things that's happened, and in my bio I didn't mention that I started nursing school in '66, and then quit, got married, had 5 children, and then went back during a divorce in the '80s. Now during this period of time in the '60s, there was quite a large amount of scientific inventions that were coming to fruition. And what the impact of these has happened is that there are different devices and things that can prolong life or delay death. Now, some of the inventions was CPR. It used to be that if you had CPR, you had to have your chest opened. So CPR, closed chest, came about in the early 60s. They also started off with EMS, Emergency Medical Services. They also came about with, excuse me, defibrillation. They came about with transfusions being perfected more. They came around new IV antibiotics. There is a list of different types of inventions that happened that all of them have their purpose. Mechanical ventilation, and the list is quite extensive. So all of these things pretty much started to have an impact on the medical options during that period of time. However, there was also some unintended consequences. Some of the unintended consequences, I don't know whether anyone's familiar with Karen Quinlan. That was a girl that was in the 1970s, and she was doing what kids sometimes do, which are don't make any bit of sense. I don't know whether anybody remembers Twiggy, but Twiggy was the model that everybody was trying to resemble. And she had, from what I understand, a dress that she really wanted to get into, and she was taking some pills to lose some weight, and she had some alcohol. The combination created a scenario to where her heart stopped. They did restart her heart. However, during this period of time, she did not get blood flow when the oxygen, excuse me, with oxygen to her brain, and she had severe brain damage. She was placed on mechanical ventilation to try to allow her time to see whether she was going to improve. Now, this was at the direction of the physicians then, and the physicians were doing, I'm going to say, adventurous things, because they now had ways to try to prolong life and give a person an opportunity to try to get over something to see what the final results were. So when she was placed on the ventilator, she was not improving. She was having a lot of seizures, and her brain was severely damaged. Her father wanted her to come off of the ventilator. The physician said no. The hospital said no. They felt like that was going to be the same as essentially murdering her. So a lot of court cases came about during this period of time, and ultimately what became of that is the father was able to be her surrogate decision maker. The physicians in the hospital were not the decision makers for her at that time. So the father said he wanted the ventilator off, but they decided to keep the tube feeding. When a person has a brain injury, there's a period of time that you have swelling in your brain, excuse me, and that's usually the worst time as far as trying to evaluate their mental abilities. Sometimes when the swelling goes down, they're a little bit improved, sometimes not. So with her coming off the ventilator, she was able to breathe. She was able to breathe on her own, and actually she lived for several years after that. The tube feeding was essentially keeping her alive, and the good hygiene and care that she was getting. She ultimately died a peaceful death, and unfortunately that was one of the heralding things that showed about the unintentional consequences of doing some of these things that we have available. And there is a time and a place for all of these things, all of these devices. The mechanical ventilation has enhanced surgery, because it used to be that they could give ether, but unfortunately the ether, the person couldn't breathe very well. So this allows persons, when you have a big surgery, you're on a mechanical ventilation so that they can give you medicine so that you don't try to scratch your nose when they're doing surgery, and so that they have time to do the surgery properly. But most people can come off of that machine very readily. They also use that machine when a person is having a condition called respiratory failure, like a pneumonia or COVID, but it is with the intention of trying to allow them to get over the hump to where their lungs can rest and then hopefully come off the breathing machine. That doesn't always happen. So I'm going to give you, we talked about the example with Mary, and I'm going to go to another person that is, we're going to call him Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith is 70-ish, a lovely, lovely man. He was in the Navy for a career, and then when he got out, he worked at the shipyard. He was a chief bosun mate in the Navy, and he did welding at the shipyard, so he basically had 2 careers. He's been smoking since he was 11 years old. Hasn't really tried to stop because he didn't really see it as a problem. He built his house right after he got married when he was about 22, and he and his wife are still living in the house. And they have the most beautiful yard, because that is one of his joys, is getting out and working in the yard. He has a magnificent garden that everybody knows when their tomatoes are coming, you can go over there and get green tomatoes and make some fried green tomatoes. He also would fix everybody's cars in the neighborhood if they couldn't afford to fix it and such. And he was active in his church. He also had a couple of male friends that he had had since childhood, and they would go down to a corner bar and they would play games and they would watch TV and they would have a beer. And all of these things described his quality of life. Now, can you see this man in your mind's eye? Can you see his yard? Can you see the house? Can you see him? So he started having symptoms of shortness of breath, and he was always extremely active, but a period of time started to where he wasn't doing quite as much. He wasn't going outside and tending to the garden. He wasn't going outside and focusing in on the repairs and things that needed to his house. So his wife is getting worried. She's like, what is going on? And the family is getting worried. So they're thinking he's either depressed, he's losing weight. Why is he losing weight? Why doesn't he want to go anywhere? Why doesn't he want to do anything? His best buddy is his 5-year-old grandson. And his grandson comes over there after school, and they sit there and watch cowboys. And I don't know why an awful lot of people like to watch cowboy shows at this time, but they do. They really do. So they're sitting there watching cartoons and cowboy, and that's basically what he's doing. He's sitting in that chair all the time. Now, with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, it is a condition to where your lungs get tough, for lack of a better description. Normally, and this is very simplistic, normally your lungs are soft and fluffy, so you breathe the oxygen out of the air, it goes into your lungs, the lungs give it to the heart carries it around to the body, and there's no problem. Unless, let's say we climbed up 3 flights of stairs. When we get up to the third floor, our body is taking over. And what I mean by that is the body has a specific amount of oxygen that it requires. It has to have that oxygen. It can go without food or water or anything for a little period of time, but it has to have this amount of oxygen. So the body actually will start doing things to, I'm going to say, control the person to make sure it gets its oxygen. So if we go up 3 flights of stairs, when you get up to the top of the stairs, you're going to be breathing faster. Your heart's going to be going faster. When you get up there, are you going to feel like exercising? No. Are you going to feel like eating a big meal? No. That's how he feels all the time. So if he, let's say, his grandson just refurbished an old Thunderbird, and he wants to go out there and see it. The grandson brought it over, and he said, come on, Granddad, come on down and see it. From here up, does he want to go out there and see that car? Yes, he wants to go out there and see that car. But his body is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. If you do that, I'm not going to get enough oxygen, so this is what I'm going to let you do. I'm gonna let you get up, and let you go over there and lean against that for a minute, get yourself together, and then I'm gonna let you sit down, get yourself together. I'm gonna let you get out there, but you're gonna have to pace it. And that's the body taking over because it's not getting enough oxygen. Does that make sense? So he gets out there and sees the Thunderbird, and then he comes, and then his grandson has to carry him back in because he's so exhausted. Unfortunately, this has created a scenario to where what you'll see is people that are going along with the condition, and they're having a little bit of a decline. Anything that happens, whether it's a pneumonia or an exacerbation, that's bad enough that he has to go to the hospital, it brings him down here. It takes a long time to recuperate from that, to get back up to that point. And unfortunately, when they aren't eating as well, because everybody knows you gotta have some meat on your bones to deal with all this stuff, and that's what he's starting to do, is lose weight. So you see this step type thing. Every time he goes to the hospital, and he doesn't wanna go, his wife comes in and she sees him there and she's like, "You're breathing too fast," and he goes, I'm fine. He doesn't want to go to the hospital. And he's told his wife that many times. But it's scary when you're around somebody that can't breathe. Scary to her, scary to him, scary to everybody. So she calls 911 and they go to the hospital. Now when he goes to the hospital, one of the first things he still has capacity. And capacity means that he understands what you're asking him and he can process things that you ask him. But he has the potential to lose that very quickly, because when a person starts getting very low on their oxygen, then they get altered mental status. So when a person has capacity, they can make decisions for themselves. All the way there, he's like, "I don't want the ventilator, I don't want the ventilator." He's had it before, and he wasn't on it long, but it was very claustrophobic for him, and it was very frightening. He finally came off of it, and they were actually worried that he was going to have it, in order to keep it on, they were going to have to put a tracheostomy in him, which was something that was not his idea of a quality of life. Now, when he was going down to the watering hole, the bar with his friends, he actually told one of his best friends, because he had gone to the hospital and seen somebody that was in the condition that he's trying to avoid, and he told him, "I want you to make sure that none of this happens to me. I want you to make sure that I am comfortable." And his name is Cuz. He's not really a cousin, he's a friend. So Mr. Smith thought, well, I've already got that settled. I don't have to worry about that. He's got my back. Everything's going to be okay. But when he gets to the hospital, he starts to lose capacity, and he has not done an advance directive. So in the state of Virginia, if you have not done an advance directive, it's initially they're going to go to the spouse. So going to his spouse, they have been married for 60 years, and they have had a very good relationship. And she cannot imagine ever him not being there at night in bed with her, where she can reach over and pat him on the shoulder, and then they go to sleep. They probably did a little bit more than patting on the shoulder once in a while, because they had 6 children. And that's another issue that will come up in a minute. So the wife is hearing things like, "We can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this." And I'm not saying that she's selfish intentionally, but she wants him at home with her no matter what. So she may very well go against his wishes, because she feels like that is what needs to be done to get to what needs to be done. So she has an anxiety disorder. Not bad. Her husband has kept it under control by doing all the things that he knew caused anxiety for her. So she starts getting real anxious and scared. So the next default are the children. There's 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. 1 child is on heroin. One child is in prison. One child is going through a terrible divorce. So all of these children have, when it defaults to the children, it has to be all the children or the majority of the children. This scenario is fraught with danger because the one in prison wants to see the father, and he has guilt. The one on heroin can't get it together to really have a conversation. So all of these is going to create a scenario that I'm sure that Mr. Smith never wanted, is there's going to be a lot of discord amongst them. And sometimes people will say, well, I want him to have everything because I love him the most. But that's not the whole purpose in respecting a person's wishes at this time, is not what you want for them, not what you want for yourself. It's actually what you believe that he would want, or what you know he would want. Then it's going to default to his parents. If we can't get the children, it defaults to his parents. His parents are in their 90s, and they're doing okay for 90s, but nobody ever wants to be in a position to where they have to say what to do for a child. So even though he's in his 70s, he's still a child. So that makes it very difficult too. Next, it's going to default to your siblings, and it's going to have to be the majority of the siblings, not 1, 2, 3. It's the majority of them. Can you see how this is getting pretty complex and complicated? So he regains a little bit of capacity, and he finally says, well, I want his cousin to be the decision maker. Now, in the state of Virginia, that person could never have been a default person to talk about not doing things and taking things away. So doing an advance directive indicating who his surrogate decision maker is very important. So he's able to go home this time. And the doctors actually recommended some hospice, and of course that was frightening for everybody because they think the hospice means the end of the life. Hospice means that 2 or more physicians would not be surprised if a person died in 6 months or less. It doesn't mean they will. I've seen people that are on hospice that graduate and go back on it later on. But the family, he wasn't ready for it, and the family wasn't ready for it at that time. So he goes home, and again, with the stair step, he starts getting a pneumonia. So the wife gets scared again and calls 911. Now, I'm going to give you 2 scenarios, and they're difficult. Both of them are difficult. So he goes to the hospital, and I'm going to be the granddaughter. And she is telling Jordan. And Jordan, I have to say, he's the 5-year-old that was at his side all the time. So she tells Jordan, go pack a bag. I have to take you over to your aunt's house. You're going to spend the night. Granddad's in the hospital again, and they're putting him on a ventilator. And Jordan says, but I want to go see him. And you can't. He's in the hospital. Well, I just want to talk to him. You can't. He's in the hospital on a ventilator. You can't be around him because if you get him too excited, he's going to be upset and the breathing machine won't work. So Jordan says, but I want to talk to him. I want to see him, and I know he wants to see me. And she says, well, we'll just have to wait and see how things end up. So Mr. Smith, thank you. Mr. Smith ends up on the breathing machine, and the poor Jordan can't go see his grandfather. And he has to go stay with his aunt, which Jordan is very adamant that his grandfather would not want him going over there because they have all girls, and he doesn't have anything real to play with. And his grandfather told him that it's not healthy for him to go over there with too many girls. So Jordan does not want to go. He wants to go see his grandfather. His grandfather is on the ventilator. His heart stops. They do CPR. They're able to get it back, but then it stops again, and they cannot get it back. The other scenario is he goes to the hospital, he has a palliative care meeting, they sit down and talk about all the what-ifs, they talk about things that people don't want to hear at that time, they talk about options. I have been a nurse, a critical care nurse, for a long period of time, and I have probably caused many bad deaths with the best of intentions. When a person is nearing the end of their life, trying to do things to prolong it, when it is causing agony, is not what all these things were intended for. So, excuse me, Mr. Smith goes to the hospital, they have a discussion, he is adamant, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. He starts to lose his capacity, but he has done an advance directive indicating his cousin to be his decision maker. The cousin says, no ventilators, no nothing, we're just going home with hospice. So the conversation now is, Jordan, go get your bag and pack it for tonight. We're going to go over to Grandma's, and we're going to be staying a couple nights. It's going to be very busy. And he's like, what are you cooking? And she says, a big pot of chili. We're going to take that over there. And he goes, good. Can I have some now? And she goes, sure. So they go over to the house, and she says, oh, we have to wait until they get the bed. And he says, what do you mean the bed? And she says, it's a special hospital bed. And he goes, oh. He says, well, who's going to be in his bed? And she says, well, he can't be in his bed because he can't lay down flat anymore. He has to have his head up. It helps him breathe better. He's got some oxygen, and he's got some other things. But at this time, the extra oxygen doesn't always help because it can't get through the places it needs to get to provide adequate oxygen for the body. So one of the things with hospice-type care that they give is morphine. And everybody knows what morphine is, and everybody thinks of morphine for pain, and it is. But it also helps the body think it's getting more oxygen. So it is a method to try to ease his suffering at the end of his life. So Jordan goes over there, and his grandfather's awake. They have him in the bed, and Jordan goes into the kitchen, and he says, Grandpa looks tired. And she goes, yeah, I know, he's on hospice. And she says, well, what's hospice? And so they have a little bit of a discussion about it. Not much, but they have a little bit of discussion. And she says, here, take this ice cream out there to him. And she goes, yep, that's what he wants, is ice cream. And so he takes the ice cream out there, and he puts a little bit on his mouth. And he doesn't really want that much. So the granddad shows him how to work the bed. So he's getting the head of the bed going up and the head of the bed down and the knee up and down, and the grandfather's in there just grinning from ear to ear. So he comes back to the kitchen with his mother, and he says, Granddad said he wants more ice cream. And she says, oh, did he eat it all? She says, no, he told me to eat it. So the whole scenario keeps going on like this. The next day, he's more tired, he's not doing as much. And the grandson is getting a little bit upset. He's like, what's going on with Granddad? He's not wanting to do as much. And the next day, he's starting to have really difficult breathing. And the grandson comes out and says he's making funny noises. So the daughter says, all right, I'm going to call the hospice people and have them come out and look at him and see what they recommend. And later she says, well, they recommend I turn him on his side a little bit and give him some morphine and things of that nature to help alleviate his suffering. So the next day, the grandson's still there, and the grandson comes into the mother, and she says, Grandma's crying. She won't stop crying. She said, Granddad's gone to see Jesus. And she says, well, is he awake? And she says, no, he's sleeping. He's still here. I don't know what she means by he's gone to see Jesus. Excuse me. So, which scenario sounds best? Which scenario sounds best to die with? Yeah. And which scenario is going to create a a legacy for the family when they have to deal with these in the future. So the mechanical ventilation and all of the other devices that we have available, there is a time and a place for that. Yes, you can put him on the ventilator and you can proceed in the ICU with very little family support. People have been dying for years and years and years and years. This is the first time in generations that they've had to decide whether to use these devices or not. People were dying before, and they would give them laudanum, which is a morphine elixir with alcohol in it, to help them. When they would when they called it going to bed and turning their face to the wall. They used to call pneumonia the old man's best friend, because they got tired and they would go to bed and they would pass that way. So ultimately, everybody that's here that was born is going to die. We can't predict the time, but the beginning we know, the end we know is going to happen. What I've been talking about is that little period of time right before death. The only option, end-of-life option, is death. All of these other things are things that you might do to delay it and prolong it, but sometimes there is more burden than benefit. Does that make sense? Yeah. And any questions?
Well, thank you so much. Dr. Christie, thank you so much for the presentation. And let's give her a bigger hand if you can. And amen. Thank you so much. And do we have any questions from anybody out here? Any questions from the internet sites? Anybody know? No? All right. I guess you did a good job. Okay, got one coming up from the internet.
An advance directive helps the family make decisions. The best thing that helps is actually sitting down and having the conversation with whoever your surrogate decision maker is, because we can't predict what's going to happen. We actually encourage everybody to do an advance directive that's driving age. There's many things that can cause a person to lose capacity. Falling down, hitting your head, accident, being shot, childbirth. There's all kinds of things that can cause a person to lose capacity. You can't predict when that's actually going to be needed. The only time the advance directive comes into play is when a person does not have the capacity to make decisions for themselves. They may be awake, they may be babbling, or they may not. So the things that you put in your advance directive is usually, first of all, it's going to be who you believe would make the decisions for you the way you want. Not necessarily your spouse, although that may be the perfect person. But if it's not, then on to plan B. But in an advance directive, and we actually have some out here available for you. They're free. They don't cost anything, and if you fill out an advance directive and you decide later on that I don't want that person to be my surrogate decision maker because they're starting to get dementia, then you can change it, and you can put a new person in that as your decision maker, yeah. And you can change it every week, but I hope you don't, because it's really confusing for everybody. But when a person does not have capacity, usually it is deemed to be a permanent loss. And when a person does not have the ability to make decisions, then it seems to be very difficult to know whether they're going to actually reacquire capacity. But when a person has chronic medical conditions, having the discussion with them and saying, do not put me on life support, because when a person goes on life support, it's not easy. It wasn't initially intended to be life support, but it can become life support. Life support means that if you take that away and the person cannot do the work of that organ, whether it's kidneys and hemodialysis, whether it's a ventilator, whether it's IV antibiotics, all kinds of different things can be considered, in a tube feeding. All these types of things can be considered as life support, because once you take them away, they cannot duplicate that. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes. All right, thank you for your support on it.
No, no, no. No expiration date. You can change them. Now, the very first part of the ones that I've left out here is there's a registry. And so if you fill that out, you can send that off to the registry. And basically what that means is if you're traveling to visit your family in Texas and something horrible happens, then you don't have to carry the paper around with you. But no expiration date on those. Mm-mm. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Now, I am going to say one more thing real quick. There is 2 other forms. I'm sorry. Bang, bang, bang. I don't know whether you can see this or not. This is a durable DNR form. This form is filled out to protect you from CPR. This form, State of Virginia, which is Virginia Physician's Order for Scope of Treatment, is a post form. This actually is a doctor's order saying, comfort measures, allow me to be comfortable. Don't put me on a ventilator. Don't start hemodialysis. Don't give me IV fluids. Don't be sticking me for labs when I'm not aware of what you're sticking me for. And this can apply to many conditions. Even a person with dementia, you can have them be comfort measures. They aren't actively dying, but sometimes they don't understand why a person's checking to see what their kidney function is. Does that make sense?
All right, thank you so much for your patience in answering our questions and your presentation. Let's give it up one more time for Dr. Christie. Thank you. So now we're going to have our second presenter, Randy Kesey. And she's the Vice President of Development for Peninsula Agency on Aging. And she is an advocate for aging issues and a champion, how about that, for ensuring that people have the best supporters to age well at home and their communities. Randy's strengths include vision, openness, creativity, and drive. Randy's actively serves as the vice chair on the Peninsula Task Force on Aging. It's called PEN-TFA. And this organization is dedicated to improving the quality of life for seniors in our community, and she also serves as the chair for the Community Forum on Aging. Randy holds a bachelor's degree in communications with emphasis in marketing, how about that, from the College of St. Mary's, who just lost in the tournament, but they played hard. I like the gusto they had. And she's also College of St. Mary's in Omaha, Nebraska. Let's give her a hand as she comes. Thank you. Let's take the blue one. There you go. Just hit it one time.
All right, perfect. Can you all hear me? All right, great. All right, well, thank you, everyone, so much for inviting me to come out this evening. As he said, my name is Randy Kesey. I do work for Peninsula Agency on Aging. Our mission is to make sure that our seniors remain in their homes, independent as possible, with services and supports. What a great segue from that conversation about end-of-life palliative care and making sure we fill out our advanced directives to I'm going to talk about healthy and active aging to prolong our aging process, right? So I start every presentation, and you can go ahead and put it up. I start every presentation with the same question. How many in this room are currently aging? Wait, there's some gentlemen in the back. There we go, thank you. Because every second, every minute we are aging, correct? By the time I'm done, we're gonna have aged at least what, 30 minutes? Maybe less, we'll see how long I can go. But let me ask you all a question. How do we feel about aging? How do we feel about growing old? Good? Any negative? Too fast? Okay. You know, for some of us, it's exciting. It's a race. We have this end goal in sight. For some of us, it's filled with loneliness, with change. But it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be lonely. I don't know if you know the statistic, but in 2011, the first wave of baby boomers hit 65. 46 million baby boomers today. In 8 years, that's set to be 79 million. 79 million with an increase as we go of 65 plus population. We're all aging, whether we want to accept it or not. And if you're reaching 65 at this age now, you're guaranteed, I can't say guaranteed, let me erase that. You're probably going to live an additional 19 more years. Yes. So, anybody 65 and older? All right, so we've got about 19 more years to go. Are we ready for this ride? And of course, as we grow old, that vision of growing old has changed over the years, has it not? It's kind of funny because I work for the Peninsula Agency on Aging, and what we consider as seniors is 60 and older. Do we all consider seniors to be 60? They do, yes. Discounts. You don't get discounts till like 62, 65, right? Oh, she's saying 50 up here. But so we look at aging a little bit different, because I know when I was younger, if I knew somebody who was 60, I'd be like, ew, they're old. Right? But now if we look at somebody who's 60, we're like, wow, they look great. They're young. They're vibrant. This is great. So we've changed our views. And researchers have identified different ways for us to remain healthy and active as we age. And that's important. Next slide. So of course we know that as getting older, this involves changes in all things, from physical to mental to social to spiritual to sexual, and so much more. And some of these changes we've talked about, they can be positive, but they also can be negative. But what we want to do is maximize the positive aspects of aging and work on minimizing the negative aspects of aging. So if you had that key, would you not take that and drive off with it? Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to optimize health so that the brain and the body work better for us now, but also work better for us in the future, right? Because we still have 19 more years left of this life. I have a little bit more, but we're just going to say we all have about 19 years left of this life. So we're going to dive deep into the health aspects. We're going to talk about some general health as we age, some things that happen to us. You guys are going to get up out of your seat because we're going to talk about some exercise, about active aging, because active people are known to be happier and healthier than sedentary people. We don't want to sit around all day, do we? No, we want to be active. So I'm going to show you some different exercises that you can do that take minimal time that can keep you active. And then my favorite part is we're going to take some action. You all got a handout, but for those who are watching, I'll make sure that you also get a digital copy of this. It's an action plan. It's a self-management tool that you can use, very simple, to keep you building a habit of active aging and healthy aging. Sound good? All right, so let's get into it. Next slide. So we've all heard the news today. People are living longer than ever before. A woman who has turned 65 today can live at least to be 86.6 years old. Anybody beat that? Nobody's older than 86 in here? Okay, see, she's got that beat. That's great. So women can live to be 86.6. Sorry, men, I don't have your statistic, but I think it's like 84. Women are outliving you, I'm sorry. He goes with that. So accepting and understanding what mental and physical changes normally occur with age is our first step to protecting our health. So we're going to run down this list, and I'm going to tell you, I am not a doctor, I am not a nurse, I am not here to give you any medical advice. So if you understand and you see these bodily, mental changes, please seek a physician's help, okay? All right, so the first one, our bones. Your bones, as you begin to age, become thinner and more brittle, and they lose mass and they lose their density. For women, this shows up typically as osteoporosis, and it's more common in women than in men. Sorry, women, we tend to get this more often than not. But a broken bone is usually the first sign of that bone loss. Your heart, as you age, the large arteries become stiffer, which can contribute to higher blood pressure, as well as that buildup of plaque can also cause coronary artery disease, which is a major risk factor for heart attacks. Women, that's for us as well, heart attacks. Your brain, it's common for people to experience what they call as senior moments, right? That foggy brain, even I get that sometimes. I think we all get those senior moments. And our ability to process new information or even be able to multitask sometimes slows as well. I'm a multitasker, so I can't imagine what that even looks like, going to a simple task. But when confusion and memory problems go beyond that occasional senior moment, that's time when we need to talk to a physician. Your digestive system. Yes, as you age, this is a tough one. As you age, your digestive system starts to slow down, and it doesn't contract as much as we want it to. So, of course, we deal with the fun thing of constipation, stomach pains, feelings of nausea. These are all common signs of as we age. And then the worst part, your senses. So as you age, you're going to notice that your 5 senses, hearing, vision, taste, smell, and touch, aren't going to be quite as sharp as they once were. Changes within the structures of your ears can cause hearing loss, but then that also affects your balance as we age. The sharpness of your vision may dull, causing you to need glasses, perhaps losing a license because you can no longer see. You may start to lose your sense of taste, thanks to the decrease in your number of taste buds. And you may also find that your sensitivity to touch, to pain, to pressure has also changed. Does anybody experience any of these? I see some of you nodding like, yep, I know that one. Yep, I've seen that one. That's right. So while many of these body changes are a natural part of aging, they don't have to slow you down. What's more is that there's a lot that you can do now to protect your body, even at the age that you're at. You can do things now to keep you healthy as possible as you continue to age. All right, so next slide. This is the fun slide. Get you all out of your seats here in a second. And those who are watching also live, you can do this at home. So whether you love it or hate it, physical activity is the cornerstone of healthy aging. There was a speaker that I once heard that said, if you aren't standing upright, your option is to lay down, right? So physical activity is the cornerstone of healthy aging. Scientific evidence suggests that people who exercise regularly not only live longer, but they're also happier and they live better. So meaning that they enjoy more years of life without pain or disability. Physical activity is the one most important thing that you can do for your health. So it's up to you to make that choice of whether or not you want to make your life more enjoyable, comfortable, healthier. Regular exercise has shown that it can help prevent heart disease and help manage heart disease and diabetes. It improves blood pressure, blood sugar, and blood fat levels. It can take stress off of your weight-bearing joints with a with a normal, healthy body weight. Helps nourish your joints, your cartilage, your bones, keep them healthy. It improves your energy, your self-confidence, and it lessens feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. You had the conversation the other night about stress, anxiety, and depression. How many of us have felt that? And be honest. During COVID, I can tell you when COVID hit and my work said, nope, everybody go home. We're going to telework from here on out for a while. I went into this black cloud of stress, anxiety, depression. The only thing that got me out of that was exercise. My husband would come home from work and say, you need to do something. You need to do something. This is not healthy. You need to do something. And so I bought a spin bike, and I would get up every morning and do some exercise. And I'm not saying that you have to do hours of sweat-soaked exercise to achieve health benefits. How many of us watch TV? How many of us go grocery shopping? Garden? Play on our phones, computers, anything like that? Especially the ones who are watching. You're on your computer right now, right? So there are moments that you can take every day to do a simple exercise to keep yourself active. Simple things. But sometimes we often put barriers in front of ourselves. So while I go through these barriers, you guys are going to get up and participate in some exercise. Are we ready? All right. So I will tell you, though, that safety is key. So if you do have any balance problems or injuries, please do not do this until you talk to your physician. I don't want to be liable for you falling over. So take your time as you do it. All right, the first one. I'm actually going to have Tony. I'll have her demonstrate up here first. And I don't know if people at home can see her, but it's called the Sit to Stand Challenge. So sit to stand, literally you're sitting all right now. The challenge, stand up. Sit back down. Stand up. Look how easy this is. All right, so you guys keep standing up and sitting down on your own. The challenge is, if you can, do it without grabbing anything in front of you. If you need to, please do so. The barrier for this, I don't have enough time to do this. But you all raised your hands and said you watch TV. Commercial breaks are what, roughly 3 minutes? Could we do this for 3 minutes? Dr. Johnson's out of breath. Could we do this for 3 minutes? This is strengthening your legs, your core. It's pumping blood through your body, oxygen. That's great. Are we tired yet? All right, we can move on to the next one. But this is something very simple, sit to stand, that you can do during a commercial break. Absolutely, it's true. Next one. This is called the Balance Tandem Stance. All right, so you're going to stand up. You don't have to stand up yet, but you're going to stand up 2 feet, stand on both feet. Then you're going to take 1 foot and put it in front of the other like you're on a tightrope. Hold on if you have to. If you're at home, hold on to a wall and just stand there. Take your foot out, switch to the other one. This works on balance. All right, so you all try it. Stand up. This is a tandem stance. You're going to walk. You're going to pretend like you're walking on a tightrope. Just stand there with your feet directly in front of the other one, heel to toe. This is the barrier. I'm too tired. How many of us have ever felt that? I'm just too tired. I don't feel like exercising. When you're out of shape and when you don't exercise and do physical activity, you're going to be tired. It's just a known fact. You're going to be tired if you are not working out, if you're not physically active. But you'd be surprised if you break that cycle with just a 2-minute brisk walk around the block. you could break that cycle of feeling tired. So we've just overcome that barrier just as well. All right, so you can have a seat for this one. Anybody, did I lose anybody falling over? Your balance? Yeah, nope, yep. It works on the upper body. All right, so I asked you all if you go grocery shopping. Anybody go to Walmart? We love Walmart. Nothing wrong with Walmart, but we also know that lines at Walmart are what? Long, right? So what can we do standing in line, holding a grocery cart? March in place. So what I want you to do, stand up and march in place. Just a simple march in place. A challenge you can do if you're at home on your own time or at Walmart, pick up some cans and hold the cans in your hands and add some weight to your marching. While you're waiting, lift up your groceries, your milk, whatever you're buying that day. Keep going. This is the barrier. I'm too embarrassed. Well, I've just said you're at Walmart, so how many weird things do we see at Walmart happening all the time? Do you think this is just as embarrassing? They're not looking at you. Don't be embarrassed. You're trying to age healthy and active. So don't be embarrassed. You don't have to run around in skin-tight designer exercise clothes. Put on some sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Stand at Walmart and stand in the aisle marching. You need to put some music to yourself as you're marching in place too. It doesn't matter. 2 to 3 minutes. This is some great simple exercising you can do. All right, last one. Stay standing up. I don't want you to have to do a sit-stand again. This is called the single leg stand. All right, this one's a little tricky. Yeah, please hold on if you need to. So 2 feet on the ground. You're going to shift your weight into 1 foot and lift your other foot up. If you have to hold on, please hold on. There are airplanes back there. And then you just switch to the other foot. The challenge is, eventually, if you can build up to it, is to not hold on to anything. This, of course, works our core. Our core is our main trunk of our body that provides our stability, our strength. The next challenge would be to close your eyes, but don't do that. I've had a group do that, but keep doing that because this is the barrier. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to start exercising. I'm afraid to work out. Many people don't start a new project or start exercising because they think they're going to fail. Something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. And if we want to age healthy and active, small, simple exercises like this is better than nothing. So remember, do a little bit every day is better than doing nothing at all. In fact, the most important thing is to find something that you can keep doing. What about these 4 exercises? Is this something you all can do? Easily? Absolutely. All right, you can sit. I'll let you rest now. Now we got some exercise in. He has to get some oxygen. Anybody need any water, oxygen? We're good? We're good? Dr. Johnson, I think we need stuff up here. Wait, we have a nurse in the house. She could help us, right? It's still a nurse, even if it's palliative. All right, so the next slide is action plan. This is where we're going to take some action. We're going to focus and plan ahead for how we plan to active and healthily age. So what we call as an action plan, we teach a series of wellness classes at Peninsula Agency on Aging, and part of those wellness classes is action planning. We do it every week when we do these classes because it allows us to achieve what we want to do by breaking down the activity to very simple tasks. It's the most important self-management tool that we have in our toolbox. and it's a simple piece of paper. So the piece of paper that you all have, and I'm sorry for digital land, you don't see it, you don't have it in your hand, but you see it on the screen. I want you to think about something for action planning, for active and healthy aging, that you want to do or that you decide to do. This is not someone else deciding for you to do or what you think you should do, but what you want to do. So I put 2 examples up here. One of them's an active example. So this week I will walk around the block before lunch 3 times. Simple, easy tasks. For the mental, emotional side, this week I will volunteer with PAA's Caring Neighbor program in the morning once a week. Very simple tasks. So what you think about in your action planning, it needs to be, is it something that's achievable? Is it something you can do in a week's time frame? You want to be very specific. So like, for example, I want to lose weight. That's a great goal. How are you going to reach that goal? I was telling Tony earlier, you would reach that goal by saying, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to stop eating ice cream every night and replace it with a bowl of fruit. You break down the plan to be very simple, so it's not such an overwhelming, I want to lose weight. Well, that's great, but how are you going to get there? So if you break it down into small weekly steps, you're going to be able to manage that much easier. So as you go through it, you want to think about to yourself, what's your confidence level to completing this task? 1 out of 10. The goal is a 7. So if you write a goal out in your action plan is, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to stop eating ice cream 5 times a week and replace it with a fruit cup, and my confidence level is a 4, well, that's not close to 7, and we want to be at a 7. So how would I achieve that? Well, maybe I can cut it down to, let's start with 3 nights. I'll cut out ice cream. Then next week, I'll revisit this and say, okay, did I succeed with 3 nights? Let me add 4 nights. So you just continue to build upon making an action plan. It's very much like goal setting, but it's broken down into very easy steps. Because you want to get into the habit of creating these plans and following through with your plans to put you on that path for active aging. Next slide. So we know there are many steps that you can take to help maintain your health, your vitality, your independence, which gives ourselves the opportunity for the healthiest of aging. Taking care of your physical, mental, and cognitive health is important for healthy aging, and we can make these small changes as we go along the way. So I have a fun challenge for you all. My kids make me do this all the time at home. I have teenagers, so of course they're on TikTok all the time. If you haven't heard of TikTok, it's a wonderful social media platform. But so it's called the 10-finger challenge. All right, so what I need you all to do is put all 10 fingers up. Hey, he's even standing up back there. He's 1 step ahead. You don't have to stand up, just your 10 fingers up. All right, so as I read through these, if you do these things, keep your fingers up, okay? That make sense? All right, so first one. If you exercise every day, and I'm going to stop for a second. We're in the house of the Lord. Y'all better be honest, because I'm going to move away when that lightning strikes down on you all, right? All right, so if you exercise every day, at least 5 minutes, keep a finger up. No, put your hands back up. Just a finger. So just one, yep. So if you exercise every day, leave your fingers up. So if you don't exercise, put a finger down. Does that make sense? Physical activity, I've already said, can help people of all ages, even those with serious health problems. it's important for us to, it's the cornerstone, I said. All right, if you eat a nutrient-rich diet, leave your fingers up. So if you eat McDonald's every day, you best be putting that finger down. Look, she's trying to be honest over there. Okay, so we'll just go with like at least if you try to eat a nutrient-rich diet, because we're going to go forward from today in doing it. All right, if you visit your doctor regularly, leave your finger up. So those who do not go to the doctor, like you should, all right, you guys are, this is great. We got someone with 10 fingers up back there. If you consume a maximum of 1 drink per day, leave a finger up. So if you drink more than 1 drink a night, well, first off, we need to talk alcohol. Because your body responds, I learned this, the body responds differently as you age to alcohol. Even the small amount is going to incredibly impair your judgment, your coordination, and your reaction time. Medicines, if you drink more than 1 a night. So a whole bottle counts as 4. Yes. So if you drink a whole bottle of wine, that is 4 glasses, you need to put your fingers down. Exactly. So alcohol consumption is advised to be limited to 1 drink per day for older adults. 1 drink, one drink. My husband, he fails. I think he has like 3 a night, but we won't go there. All right, so if you socialize frequently, leave your fingers up. Good. Socialization. Isolation is the number 2 cause of death for seniors in our community. Isolation. So if we continue to socialize, think about what that's doing for our mental and our physical state. All right. If you challenge yourself mentally each day or learn something new each day, leave a finger up. So if you're lazy and you just choose not to do anything and don't want to learn anything, put your finger down. All right, this one's going to get everybody. You ready? If you nap at least an hour a day, keep your finger up. What? How are you all napping an hour a day? I want to nap an hour a day. This is great. So napping for an hour in the afternoon is linked to improved memory and your ability to think clearly. And it's better than no naps and shorter naps for older adults. So you should nap, it says, for an hour. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't get to nap. They're retired, that's right. If you are a non-smoker, leave your fingers up. Great. Don't smoke. I'm just going to say that. Don't smoke. Smoking is bad for you. We all know that. She talked about that. Smoking is bad. If you brush your teeth twice daily, leave your fingers up. Sure. Or regular cleaning of your dentures. I guess that would count as well. Twice a day. I don't know how often we clean dentures. I don't know that. But your gums and your teeth are going to be healthier with this routine. So, of course, brush twice daily. And finally, here's the big one. If you are excited each day about aging, leave a finger up. Because we want to be positive about aging. A study, I told you, has found that older adults who had a positive attitude towards aging lived more than 7 years longer than someone with negative attitudes. So if you have positive aging, and I already told you you have 19 extra years to live, now I just added 7 more onto you. It's like the fountain of youth in here. This is great. All right, so does anybody have all 10? Yeah, see? So if nobody has all 10, so think about then what things that we can work on, right? So if you remember the things that you put your fingers down on, those are things that you can work on for healthy and active aging. She's saying no, it must be the alcohol consumption one. Oh, the doctor. She doesn't. Exercise, see? So these are great things that you can take with you that you can work on and you can put in your action plan. So we'll finish up with the next slide. So I'm going to ask you, are you guys ready to add life to your years and make those extra years worth living? Because you can't help but help getting older, but you don't have to get old, right? So thank you all. I hope you enjoyed yourselves.
Any questions in the audience? Do we have any online inquiries? No? Well, let's give Randy another hand for such an excellent job, man. I tell you, if you didn't get your exercise today, you got some tonight, that's for sure. I feel so good tonight for both of you presenters being here tonight and really sharing some tough stuff with us, some real information that I believe our seniors can use and they can carry on for a long time with it. So thank you so much. I don't think we have any more business tonight. We'll be in contact with both of you all. And come on, let's give both of our presenters one more hand. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I want you to stand. I'll let you, we'll give a prayer, and then we will go home. How about that? I want you to bow your head with me. Father, we thank you again for what we have been able to learn tonight. We thank you for the direction that you're giving us to improve our lives and make our lives more healthy and active. And thank you for reminding us that none of us are here to stay, that at some point we all have to leave, and to get our business straight while we're here. We thank you for that. We thank you for the presenters, and ask you to give us traveling mercies on the way home. In Jesus' name, amen.